By the time governments began questioning Amazon, it was already too late. Removing Amazon wouldn't have restored competition, it would have broken the internet. Millions of businesses didn't just sell on Amazon, they depended on it. Startups didn't just compete with Amazon, they ran on its servers. Amazon didn't dominate by winning markets, it dominated by becoming infrastructure. And once a system reaches that point, you don't fight it, you adapt to it. This isn't a story of how Amazon got big. This is the story of how it became impossible to remove. After the dot-com crash, Amazon survived, but survival wasn't the victory. Control was. Amazon stopped thinking like a retailer and started thinking like a system engineer. Warehouses weren't storage, they were laboratories. Every movement was timed, every step was logged, every second shaved. The goal wasn't speed, it was predictability. Humans didn't work with the system, they worked inside it. Software decided where items lived. Algorithms decided which worker moves next. Management measures performance in milliseconds. From the outside, Amazon looked chaotic. Thin margins and constant reinvestment. Inside, it was becoming brutally current. What Amazon was really building wasn't logistics, it was a feedback loop. The more orders flowed through the system, the more data it collected. The more data it collected, the more precisely it could optimize. And the more it optimized, the harder it became to compete. Efficiency stopped being a tool, it became the rule. By the mid-2000s, Amazon could move products faster and cheaper than anyone else. Not because it cared more, but because the systems allows nothing else. This wasn't cruelty, this was logic. And logic, once abandoned in infrastructure, doesn't negotiate. Amazon's most important product wasn't a store, it was a mistake. While building its own infrastructure, Amazon realized something unsettling. The hardest part of running the internet wasn't IDs, it was servers. So Amazon did something no retailer was supposed to do. It sold its internal machine. AWS wasn't launched to dominate, it was launched to eliminate friction. Startups could scale instantly. Corporations could outsource complexity. Governments could rent computing power instead of building it. And they did. Quietly, the internet retooted itself through Amazon. Competitors noticed too late. Netflix ran on AWS. Startups ran on AWS. Even companies competing with Amazon depended on it. Retail profits stopped mattering. AWS printed cash. This changed everything. Amazon could afford to sell products at razor-thin margins or below costs because the real money was coming from infrastructure. From that moment on, Amazon wasn't just participating in markets, it was underwriting them. And when one company controls both the marketplace and the plumbing beneath it, competition becomes optional. AWS didn't make Amazon visible, it was unavoidable. By 2015, Amazon no longer felt dominant, it felt normal. You didn't notice the power because it didn't announce itself. It arrived as convenience. Cheaper prices, faster delivery, endless choice. Behind the interface, Amazon was doing something unprecedented. It was competing, hosting competitors, tracking sellers, and setting prices all at the same time. Marketplace sellers depended on Amazon for visibility. Amazon depended on their data. And data revealed everything. Which products sold, which margins worked, which competitors could be copied. Amazon didn't need to crush rivals directly. It could underprice them, outship them, or simply absorb their demand. No single decision looked abusive. Together they were unstoppable. Governments were slow, consumers were satisfied, the system expanded quietly. By the time regulators began questioning questions, the dependency was already global. Amazon wasn't just too big to fail, it was too embedded to remove. Then the system was stress tested. COVID didn't create Amazon's power, it exposed it. As the world shut down, Amazon became essential infrastructure overnight. Packages moved, competitors stalled, governments depended. But inside the machine, cracks appeared. Workers protested conditions they could no longer escape. Warehouses became headlines, efficiency was suddenly visible and human. At the same time, lawmakers got up. Antitrust hearings followed. Internal documents surfaced. Executives were questioning, not about innovation, about control. Jeff Bezos sat before Congress, calm and precise. He didn't deny the skill, he explained it. And that was the problem, because the logic that made Amazon unstoppable was now the same logic being put on trial. For the first time, Amazon was just admired or feared. It was challenged. Not because it failed, but because it worked too well. In 2021, Jeff Bezos stepped down as CEO. There was no collapse, no apology, no reversal. Andy Jassy took over. AWS remained the core. Day one stayed the doctrine. Nothing meaningful changed. That was the final realization. Bezos had not been the engine, he had been the initiator. The system no longer required vision or charisma. It required maintenance. Amazon continued optimizing. Warehouses ran. Algorithms adjusted. Infrastructure scaled. Regulators slowed parts of the machine, but they couldn't undo it. Too many businesses depended on it. Too much of the internet ran through it. This wasn't a fall. This was constrained. Amazon didn't lose power, it met resistance. And that is how modern dominance ends. Not with collapse, but with containment. Because once a system becomes infrastructure, removing it will break the world's supports. After Bezos left, something subtle became clear. Amazon didn't need to expand anymore. It needed to hold. Sellers who tried to leave discovered the trap. Their rankings vanished, their reviews stayed behind, their margins collapsed elsewhere. Customers were no different. Prime wasn't just faster shipping, it was habit. It was friction removal. It was by psychological lock-in. Once your defaults live inside one system, leaving stops feeling like a choice. Even competitors were trapped. Retailers relied on Amazon for traffic. Startups relied on AWS for survival. Media depended on its infrastructure. Governments depended on its logistics. Amazon didn't block exits, it simply made exit inefficient. This is how modern power stabilizes, not through force, but through dependency curves. At scale, freedom isn't just removed, it's priced out. And that price keeps rising. Amazon no longer needs to grow aggressively. The system now grows automatically. Through renewals, subscriptions, integrations, and defaults. Every year, more decisions move from humans to systems. And every system routes back to Amazon. This is the final phase of dominance. Not expansion and not control. This wasn't a story about Jeff Bezos. It was a blueprint for how power works in the modern world. Not through domination, not through monopolies in the old sense, but through a system that makes themselves necessary. Amazon didn't win because it was smarter. It won because it stayed longer, optimized deeper, and embedded itself everywhere decisions were being made. Buying, selling, shipping, hosting, and scaling. None of these felt aggressive, that's why it worked. By the time people noticed the control, they were already depending on it. And this is the part that matters, because Amazon isn't unique. The same logic now runs to platforms, softwares, payments, logistics, and AI. Different names, same architecture. Build infrastructure, subsidize adoption, outsource dependency, and then let interior do the rest. Once a system reaches that point, removing it feels irresponsible. Not because it's good, but because everything around it has adapted to the existence. That's how modern dominance survives, not by force, but by becoming the default. And if you want to understand the next generation of power, the companies, platforms, and systems that won't collapse, but also won't be removable, then this is the story. Doesn't end with Amazon. This is the clearest example.